October 18th, 1947, was the date something very special was born. With a 14-6 loss to Stetson, the life of Florida State University football took its first breath. It was a breath that developed from an outcry by the student body, by the people of Tallahassee, and all those associated with the university who demanded it. So by act of the state legislature, the Florida State football program had begun. It is a program who, a mere 47 years later, celebrated its birthday by doing what no other university born after World War II had done: winning the national championship. Along those bumpy 47 years of life, there have been wins over opponents that are, of course, more noteworthy than others, games so dramatic in fashion that they are spoken about for years and years. And there are, of course, those milestone wins, great wins by great teams, with great players along a timeline of success. Success in those games by those great teams and players are the major factor that in itself breeds a school's tradition. Tradition that ultimately builds greatness, the greatness of which Florida State University is made of. Let's take a chronological walk back through time of the 10 most memorable games in Florida State history. Before we begin our journey, here are some games not in the final 10, but are notable for the special place they had in school history.
(1983) at Arizona State. Without starting quarterback Kelly Lowry and trailing 26-22, the Seminoles stood 82 yards and 88 ticks of the clock from pay dirt.
Thing I remember about that ball game is we went all the way down for a score using two plays. One was a tight end pass to Tommy Wheeler. The other was a little hitch pattern to Jesse Hester or Hassan Jones. And if they was in one coverage, the hitch pattern was good. If they were in another coverage, the drag pass to Tommy Wheeler at tight end was good. And so one time we'd run the drag, then we'd run the hitch, and we'd run the hitch again, then we'd run and we matched up real good, and Bob just took us right down the field, right down the field, right down the field. That has always been called the drive.
(1988) the Fiesta Bowl versus Nebraska. Trailing 28-24 with 6:58 left, the Tribe's defense hands the offense the ball, 97 yards from Fiesta Bowl glory. On 4th and goal from the 15. A Seminole triumph. Winless in Jordan-Hare Stadium, the Seminoles were out for respect. From the game's first offensive possession, this would be a garnet and gold day.
McManus on a quick snap, fires across the middle, catch made, touchdown Florida State, Herb Gator, and the Seminoles lead 13-0. McManus on a quick drop, looks, has plenty of time, looks across the toward the end zone. It is caught by Gator, touchdown Florida State. The Seminoles add 6 more.
Leading 13-7 in the closing minutes, the Tigers embark on a 68-yard drive to victory. 3 straight fourth down conversions have them knocking on the door. But primetime will not let them in. Florida State in Death Valley to face the third-ranked Clemson Tigers. Trailing 14-7 in the third quarter, Dion promises, then delivers. Then, with the score knotted at 21 with a little over 2 minutes remaining.
And here's the short handoff and the little handoff to the up back. Leroy Butler's got a long way to go to the 40. Leroy Butler to the 50. Leroy Butler to the 40 to the 30. Leroy Butler to the 20. Leroy to the 10. Leroy Butler knocked out of bounds at the 4-yard line. What a play by the Seminoles. Some razzle-dazzle. Low center snap fielded nicely by Johnson. The field goal is good.
The eventual national champs pay the price in Tallahassee.
He will play fake and drop back to throw. Under pressure, he gets out of the pocket, runs to the right side, gets the pass over. It is picked off by Leroy Butler. Butler's got it at the 36-yard line, and the Seminoles force the first turnover. On first down, Bennett and Carter are the starting running backs. Handoff goes to Dexter Carter, tries to get outside, gets the corner turn. He is to the 30-yard line. He is to the 20-yard line. Down the sideline, Dexter Carter. Touchdown, Florida State. First play from scrimmage, a 37-yard touchdown run.
En route to the national title, Florida State breaks the jinx.
Charlie Ward takes the snap. He'll hand it off to Jackson, tries to go outside. Sean tries to get that big looping corner. Stiff arm, gets a block out front to the 40, the 45 to the 50, to the 45 to the 40, to the 35 to the 30, to the 25 to the 20. High steps one to the 10, 5. He is going a touchdown! A touchdown, Florida State! Pushed out of the pocket, goes to his right, looks downfield, throws the ball downfield, has Brad Pryor. Pryor to the 40, Pryor to the 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Florida State! Looking left, gets the pass. It's picked off by Bush to the 25, to the 20, to the 15, to the 10, 5. Touchdown, Florida State! Touchdown, Florida State!
On this night, Peter Tom Willis would introduce himself to the college football world.
Drops back and throws the post. Deep. He's got a wide open receiver. Touchdown catch, Terry Anthony. Play fake by Willis. Wants to run the bootleg. Throws it into the end zone. Touchdown, Florida State. As the Seminoles anticipate some trickery, they go up the middle. Corrado blocks the ball. It's loose, and Jenkins is going to get it. He'll get it at the 5, and he will take it in to score the touchdown. Unbelievable.
The Seminoles win for the first time in Gainesville. The drought ends at 6.
3 tight ends set right side. McManus hands off to Dane Williams. Touchdown, Florida State.
Warwick and the Seminoles get it done, stopping the Gators' 23-game streak at the Swamp.
Ward takes the snap. Play action. Drops. Looks. Pops into the pocket. Runs to his left. Throws it downfield. It is caught by Dunn. He's got the first down to the 40. Down to the 50. Down the other sideline to the 40. Down to the 30. He separates. He's to the 20. To the 10. To the 5. Touchdown, Florida State.
(1964) marks the early arrival of the Florida State football program. Florida State University shows an eagerness to not only compete, but to win. The 1964 Florida State football team was made up of many significant and vital parts. Those parts gelled to provide 3 of the most significant wins in school history. Part 1 was a crisp passing combination of Steve Tensi to Fred Bolitnikoff. Tensi, at 6 foot 5 inches, was a quarterback that most people believed was not the guy to lead the team before the season began. Bolitnikoff, an unheralded recruit, went on to become the school's first All-American and first big-time pro player. Part 2 was a spectacular defense.
I remember sitting on the training table, having my feet taped, and one of them sneaked up behind me with a razor, and all I saw was all my hair falling over into my lap. And I said, go ahead, let's do it. They wanted to make a commitment. Cut all our hair off, and let's be the Magnificent Seven. Let's be a bunch of bald-headed guys, but let's have that camaraderie, that bond. We won't let our hair grow. We're going to go out there and be a formidable foe on defense, and we're not going to let people score on us.
The 5 linemen and 2 linebackers that made up this group ended the season 5th in the country in total defense and 3rd in the country for rush defense. October 10th, 1964 saw giant killer Kentucky come to town to face the Noles. The Wildcats were ranked 5th at the time and had wins over a tough Auburn squad and preseason #1 Ole Miss. The outcome of this game was never in doubt.
On that evening, before the game, we just really came together and we said, we can do it. We will do it. And we were like a buzzsaw. We couldn't be stopped. We jumped all over Kentucky. They were supposed to be the Wildcats, but we turned out to be the Wildcats. They were the victims of years and years of building.
Florida State scored on its first 2 possessions. The second coming on a Bolitnikoff 53-yard reception, which made it 14-0 less than 3 minutes in. It was 21-0 at the end of the first and 27-0 at the half. Florida State piled it on with 7 touchdowns on the day, building a 48-0 lead with a little over a minute left. FSU wins big, 48-6, making Kentucky an unwilling homecoming sacrifice.
They had 6 points. We had 40-some points. At the end of the game, some of our guys went in crying because we got scored on. Not because we lost the game, but we got scored on. But that was the kind of season it was. That really set the tempo for our season. We knew we could do it.
You know, nationally at that time, it was significant. And I think it propelled FSU, got people started thinking about us pretty much that year.
Later that season, Florida State welcomed arch rival, the University of Florida, to Tallahassee for the first time. Of course, to call Florida just an arch rival was probably mild. UF had won every game in the series since 1958, with the exception of a 3-all tie in 1961. How heated was this game? Florida, the game favorite, wore stickers on their helmets during practice that week reading, "Never FSU, never." The Gators entered the field with "Go for 7" on their jerseys, as in consecutive victories over FSU.
And the one thing I can remember, somebody had mentioned, don't get rattled. The University of Florida was good at saying, you know, go for 7 or never FSU, never. I remember the game they went in there and they said, never FSU, never. You'll never beat us. Well, little brother had grown up and they knew it.
it just made us mad. You know, we walked out there and saw that. Not only go for 7, it said on the back or the front, never FSU never. Also had that on there. So, again, going into that game, we looked at films. We knew we could beat them. There was no doubt. We were confident, and we beat them. We beat them bad.
Florida drove to Florida State's 1. But on 3rd and goal, George D'Alessandro picked up a Gator miscue, thwarting the drive. After a scoreless first quarter, a Howard Eller fumble recovery of Steve Spurrier put FSU in business. Tensy then hit a streaking Bolitnikov for a 55-yard touchdown and a 7-0 FSU lead. The Seminole defense then played ungracious hosts, wreaking havoc on the Gators. 2 Les Murdoch field goals made it 13-0 in the 4th quarter. Steve Spurrier mixed the passing game brilliantly with the run as the Gators closed the gap to 6. One more time, the Tribe booted 3 points through the uprights as Florida State had captured their first ever victory versus the University of Florida.
It was intense. You know, we wanted to win. We wanted to beat them bad.
Going into our training table every day, day in and day out, and it said this space is reserved for the first Florida State football team to beat the University of Florida. We watched that for 4 years, but our time had arrived. We knew that we were not a bunch of Florida rejects because we'd played with them. We know those people down south, and we knew we could do it. And that's where we really did come together as one unit, offensively and defensively.
With a record of 8-1-1 and a number 10 ranking in the Associated Press poll, Florida State accepted its first major bowl bid and would face the Oklahoma Sooners and their 6-3-1 record in the Gator Bowl. It was the Seminoles' first primetime showing against a perennial power of college football, an Oklahoma team that had won the national championship as recently as 1950, and then again in 54 and 55. An Oklahoma program that between the years of 1953 through 57 had won 47 consecutive contests without tasting defeat.
We went down there and oh, the awesomeness of Oklahoma. They had, everybody was an All-American at Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma. And here again, we might have been a little bit intimidated, but then again, we knew we were good.
The Seminoles brought to this contest a wide-open passing style that would be sure to thrill the 50,000-plus Gator Bowl spectators and the millions more watching the contest at home. Florida State would be without their place kicker, Les Murdoch, not available because of an uncertainty over his eligibility. However, on this great afternoon, it simply would not matter. Steve Tensy shredded the Oklahoma defense for 303 yards and 5 touchdowns on 23 of 36 passing. Bolitnikov was equally outstanding, catching 13 passes for 192 yards and 4 TDs. The duo earned co-MVPs of the game, a Gator Bowl first. Phil Spooner chipped in 27 carries for 125 yards, and the Seminoles simply routed Oklahoma in a game that was not as close as the score. The 1964 Seminole football team became the first to win a major bowl game in school history. It was a team that set a new standard for passing in college football, sending as many as 5 players out on patterns on a single play. A team that knew how to play good defense with a reckless abandon that overwhelmed opposing offenses. But more importantly, a team that provided us with 3 of the most memorable games down the road to national success.
Our 1964 team had it all together. We had great defense with a great offense. and that's why we went on to be successful. But that was the foundation. I feel like those teams, some of those 60s teams, laid the foundation for the teams that we see representing Florida State right now.
The 1967 season would provide Seminole fans a game which would be dubbed the unanticipated upset in future years. In only the season's second game, the Tribe traveled to Birmingham to face an Alabama team that had recorded 21 straight victories and was a 3-touchdown favorite. To make matters worse, Alabama returned 10 defensive starters from a team that only allowed 37 points the previous season, while FSU was blown out at Houston the previous week, 33-13. Alabama put the ball on the ground early. Kim Hammond hits Ron Sellers on a 12-yard TD connection, and the underdogs were on top first. Florida State's defense forces the Tide to punt, and suddenly, the unbelievable was happening. But this Alabama team would not die. Led by the Snake, Ken Stabler, Alabama found itself leading 15-14 at the end of a quarter. The teams exchanged touchdowns. Alabama took what many thought would be the final lead. Ed Morgan crashed in for a 37-30 lead. With their backs against the wall, Kim Hammond, who finished the game 24 for 43 for 287 yards and 3 TDs, led the Tribe on a picture-perfect 65-yard scoring drive.
Kim Hammond and Sellers put on an exhibition of football that you'd never see before. That's one of the most interesting games that I've coached and was surrounded by. But we just took, Kim Hammond just picked him to death. You know, he really was reading the keys real good. Alabama didn't know how to stop the passing game, I'm telling you.
So shocking was this 37-37 tie that Alabama, who has played over 100 years of football, listed this game, among others, in their Centennial Media Guide list of greatest games.
They thought they could beat anybody, you know. There was just no question about that. They had confidence and they worked hard. You know, that was a great bunch of young men.
The second year of the Bobby Bowden era, 1977, had blossomed into a brilliant season for the Noles, one in which even the most optimistic fan couldn't have dreamed of. But things in Tallahassee would not be acceptable without a victory over the hated Gators.
To many of the Florida State alums, if you don't beat Florida, no matter how many games you won, it's not successful.
Florida was 6-3-1, coming in and desperately needed a win to go to a bowl. The series had gone strongly in Florida's favor, as the Gators won 9 straight and built a commanding 16-2-1 advantage in the overall series. A win would return the Garnet and Gold to the ranks of respectability in the South after years of frustration.
And I remember they had 11 guys that year drafted in the NFL off that team. So if you wanted to put us on paper and them on paper and our people, personnel, they would have killed us. And that was their attitude.
The game plan was simple. Throw deep on the UF secondary, which was hurt by injuries. And for the defense, to hold the explosive Florida offense to a mere 17 points. Florida State was led at quarterback by what Sports Illustrated dubbed the two-headed QB, Wally Jim Jordan.
It was great for the team because it seemed like when one of us had a problem, that if we'd have stayed in, maybe we'd have dug ourselves out. That didn't happen. The other one went in, and of course the other one would be fired up, and you know, it was really like having a two-headed quarterback. It was like having 2 quarterbacks as one, and I don't know what would have happened if it just been Wally here or Jimmy here.
And a lot of times the guy that was hot was the one that was in there. For a while, it seemed like I was put in as the starter, and then Jimmy would come in a lot of times, and it went vice versa. He was a starter sometimes too. But Coach Bowden just rotated them.
They really complemented each other tremendously. It's like having in baseball, it'd be like having a great bullpen. You know, if your starter can't do it, take him out and put the other guy in, he can. And for 3 years, that's just about the way it went.
Wally Woodham was the hot man as FSU shocked the home crowd early on a sparkling drive, hitting on 4 of 5 passes as FSU marched 72 yards. Both offenses have trouble moving the ball, mustering only field goals. Jimmy Jordan in at quarterback leads FSU to the promised land, again via the air, for a 17-3 lead. Two Gator field goals narrowed the gap to 17-9 at the half. Hoping to make a game of it, the Florida defense backs Florida State up. But Jordan to Overby ends the drive, and the rout is on. Florida tries to get back into it, moving to the Knowles 1-yard line on 4th down, but it was not enough. FSU takes over, driving 99 yards and putting the final nail in the Gators' coffin. The game ends with the Tribe at Florida's 1 and a 37-9 win.
Man, it was unbelievable. It was a big game. It really was. And it showed us that we could beat the Gators with people they didn't even want, that they weren't even recruiting.
And that was the first victory we had over Florida, seems like maybe 10 years or something like that. So it was a mighty big one.
It's like all along the way we've made these little steps. And there's always been, I think there's stepping stones to each level. And you've got to make another step to be able to play the best. That year we made a step, and beating Florida was part of the road to where we are now. It kind of put us up to a new level. It's like you could start walking a little taller around campus. You felt like you were kind of there. And all of a sudden there was an energy, you know. We're not second rate anymore.
Florida State was not second rate any longer. The corner had indeed been turned. On a marvelous Midwestern Saturday afternoon, a Southern school with no national reputation took on the 3rd-ranked and 3-0 Nebraska Cornhuskers. A 44-point-a-game scoring machine, a team playing for a national title, and a team with a true Heisman Trophy candidate in Jarvis Redwine. The 108th straight sellout of Nebraska faithful greeted the Seminoles with their traditional sea of red.
Number one, you saw people didn't go in Nebraska and beat them. I can remember Alabama going in there, Coach Bryant going in there with a lot of good ball because we couldn't beat them in Nebraska. I can remember Notre Dame going in there, I think Notre Dame going in there and couldn't beat them. I remember a lot of teams, you couldn't beat them there. They were so good.
I don't think that our group as a whole, our football team, really knew just what we were getting into. We just knew that we were prepared to play as hard as we could and get after people, and whatever happened, happened.
The Cornhuskers built a comfortable 14-3 halftime lead on the strength of 2 picture-perfect mirror drives. All FSU could muster in the first half offensively was a Bill Capice 32-yard field goal. Then, the unthinkable happened. Nebraska got overconfident and provided FSU with the chances.
My job was to cover both the outside and the inside threat and let Monk slide over to cover the middle to the other side. And I went ahead and jumped the fly. I jumped the up pattern and stepped in front of the ball, intercepted it, fell out of bounds, and we went in to score on that next series.
Then the defenses began to shine, making big play after big play.
You got to make some big plays. So every now and then you got to take some calculated gambles. And we did that a couple of times early in the second half especially, and doing some things that quite frankly the coaches probably weren't real pleased that we did. We were convinced, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that we weren't going to be the part that got beat. We were going to do our part to win the ball game.
A 40-yarder from Bill Capice gives FSU its first lead at 15-14. Another field goal, this one 41 yards, put the Tribe up by 4 at 18-14. The Noles defense would have to come up big one last time if the 13-point underdogs were to hold on to this one. With Nebraska driving for an 11th-hour reprise to save their quest for a national championship, the defense plays spoiler.
I don't ever remember feeling that they were going to score on us, feeling that the game was at hand and they were fixing to beat us. I never once can remember feeling that we were going to lose that football game.
Down, goal to go. When the quarterback has Franklin. And Roger Craig, he's going to roll toward his right side. Borowski's going to trap him. He loses the football. The Seminoles are going to haul on it. Florida State's come up with it. They own the football in the ball game. Seminoles.
Saw him rolling, and so he went ahead and rushed him. And as he started to cock his arm to throw, Paul hit him in the shoulder pad, and the ball fell out of his hand. And Gary Futch, one of our defensive tackles, scrambled over there and dove on top of that ball.
The Seminoles seized control of a game few gave them a chance to win by forcing 4 Nebraska turnovers, and with Bill Capice chalking up 12 of the 18 points.
Yeah, I was real proud of that. I had 4 opportunities to go out there, and I produced 4 times, and we needed it.
In a town where football is religion, and talk is not of a Big 8 championship, but rather of a national championship, a small southern school made a name for itself.
That always go down in my book as maybe not necessarily my favorite win, but probably the most important win in Florida's state's modern day history.
For the second consecutive week in the 1980 season, Florida State would take on the nation's 3rd-ranked team. The only difference is that this week the contest would be at home. The competition, however, would not be any easier. In Mission Impossible, the sequel, Florida State would line up against the 4-0 Pitt Panthers.
I've never played against a team better personnel. Marino was the quarterback. Hugh Green was the end. He won the one. I mean, they had 17 guys, I think, that went to the pros. 17 that went to the pros. Probably 13 or 14 of them played. Unbelievable. I think it's the best team I've ever played against and won.
Seminole defenders played ferocious football, causing the heralded Pitt offense to commit 7 turnovers, 3 interceptions, and 4 fumbles.
We believed we could beat them, and we kept swarming and never gave up. Dan Marino and crew was extremely talented. I believe they scored on us extremely early. We didn't get down. We were a mature group. We kept our poise and our confidence, and we kept on fighting, and we always believed that somehow, some way we'd win that game.
We made a lot of adjustments ourselves and at half times and on the field where we would take some chances and others would cover, and it seemed, whether through luck or good work or hard work or teamwork or any of the other things, to work out for us.
For the home heroes, an offensive innovation helped shred the Pitt defense.
What we would do is he'd call if he called an off-tackle play, he'd call it to the right and to the left. And so the boys would go up the line of scrimmage. They knew we were going to run off tackle, but they didn't know if it was going to go to the right or left. Then our quarterback would see where they were overloaded. Jimmy Johnson was the defensive coach at that time. He was a great defensive coach. And he would overload where he thought you were going to run. Well, our quarterback would go up and see the overload here, so he'd call off tackle left. And he just mirrored it.
A defense that gave up an average of 5 points a game would give up 36 on this night. A defense that was allowing only 31 yards per game rushing would give up 163 on this night. And a defense that was only allowing 177 yards per game surrendered an impressive 290 on this night.
It was a super challenge for us. Offensively, we went into the game with a lot of checks or combos. That we called a lot of the plays at the line of scrimmage. We had success doing that. Sam Platt broke a couple long runs. Sam Childers, we threw a couple touchdown passes. Sam Childers and Kurt Unglob made great catches on touchdowns.
Finally, a special teams performance that many rank among the finest ever helped the Noles pull out the victory.
Gosh, you know, if you look at the 5 field goals that I kicked, kicking all the balls out of the end zone on the kickoffs, and what Stark did, you know, his punting average I think was like 48 yards over, you know, several punts. If you look in the history of college football, you may not find a performance like that where both the punter and the kicker, you know, did something like that in one game.
For the second consecutive week of the 1980 season, Florida State had played giant killer.
To beat those two schools, both ranked number 3 in the country, were just something that I'll remember forever, and I think it did a lot for Florida State University in giving not only the football and athletic programs at Florida State, but the entire school there a lot of confidence and a lot of pride that they were part of Florida State University.
To win those games back-to-back meant, once and for all, to every young prospect in the country, to every fan that ever doubted the Florida State football family and program, that, hey, these people can play, and they're for real. And yes, Coach Bowden's for real.
Ann Arbor, Michigan. 106,145 fans looked in on this beautiful college football day. It was to be a battle of Big Ten smash-mouth Northern football versus the finesse pass-happy game of the South. 100 years of tradition versus 45 years of history. It was a Heisman Award candidate versus a Thorpe candidate. Number 1 Florida State versus number 3 Michigan, with all the hype and pressure. The winner in the driver's seat for the national title.
Every conference thinks they're the best conference. Every section of the country thinks they're the best section of the country. And of course, the Big Ten has such a great history of success and dominance in American college football. So anytime you go up there and beat them there, they don't like that much. Hurts their pride.
The attention the media gave that game was very wide-eyed to me. I was like, man, I didn't know people get up for these type of games. And I was a young buck then, just sitting back observing. And I just saw the pregame, how excited Sean Jackson was, and then I saw how cocky Terrell was, and then, you know, I just saw how calm Amp Lee was, and it was pretty much new to me.
Terrell Buckley sets the tone of the game's second offensive play.
On second down from the 35-yard line, Gerback looks to his right, fires the pass. It's picked off, intercepted by Terrell Buckley to the 20, to the 10. Buckley, touchdown, Florida State. Great read by Buckley. Oh, my goodness. Terrell Buckley ignites the Seminole bench. It is a 6-0 ball game.
Michigan answers with a drive that ends in a diving Desmond Howard TD, and the fireworks have begun.
Now, Bennett goes in motion to the left side. Here's Weldon looking, throws the ball. It is a lateral to Charlie Ward. Trick play right back across the field to Weldon. Weldon's got the ball. He'll run. Oh, Weldon to the 30-yard line. Weldon to the 20-yard line. Weldon to the 15. Weldon to the 11. Fumbles the football, diving right at FSU, and the Seminoles have the football. He is 2 for 2 in field goals. A big one here. Good snap. Here's the pitch goes to the fullback, and the Seminoles have a touchdown. How about that play? Brad Johnson laterals it forward, and the Seminoles score a touchdown. From the 36-yard line, quick snap. Play fake Weldon, drops to throw, dumps the ball off. He has it to Lee. Lee to the 40. Lee to the 45 to the 50. Lee to the 45 of Michigan, and he's running about. And he will hand the ball off. This is Lee, left side to the 40. Lee to the 30. 5 to the 30. Lee busts it down to the 25. Lee spins back to the 20. Lee with a block to the 15 to the 10. And Lee, touchdown, Florida State. Dropping. Weldon throws it over the middle. Warren Hart, he's got the catch. Touchdown, Florida State. Oh my. The tight end makes it over the shoulder catch and held on. And he's going to throw the ball upfield. Throws it toward Desmond Howard. Buckley is there. He cannot make the catch. Caught, touchdown. And he'll drop to throw. Looking to his right all the way. Dumps the pass off. He's got Bernie Liggett. Touchdown, Michigan. And dropping his Weldon. Throws it downfield toward Lee. Makes the catch at the 40. Lee to the 35. Cuts it back to the 25. Ampli to the 15 to the 10. Ampli is brought down at the 5-yard line. Up in the eye set. Toss sweep comes to Lee. Lee comes left side. Waits for a block. Makes the cut to the 5. Touchdown, Florida State. He is an amazing runner. Waits for the snap. Now he'll play fake and drops to throw. Looks toward his left. Fires the pass. It is intercepted. Picked off by FSU. Howard Dinkins dropped back in coverage and snares it in the end zone. On the 10. Weldon. Play fakes. Rolls to his right. Drops. Throws the pass toward the end zone. Touchdown, FSU. What a play by Weldon.
In an explosive afternoon, the Seminole offense rocked Ann Arbor for the first ever victory against the Wolverines, scoring the most points ever scored on that field against the nation's #1 ranked defense. On this September afternoon, the Florida State Seminoles proved indeed that they were #1 in the land.
We played one of the best offensive games a Florida State team has ever played. Casey Weldon was at quarterback. Ampli had a great day running. We caught the ball well. Our defense played super. Marvin Jones, middle linebacker, was just super that day. And we just played a great ball game and just beat them bad. You know, it's not supposed to happen like that.
But we was on the road. You know, I don't think many NFL teams could have beat us that day because we were playing really good and we were fired up. And all the things and all the intangibles were going our way.
Florida State entered its first ACC season with high expectations. Priorities in Seminole country have changed. Winning the ACC title would now have to come before winning a national title. The Noles traveled to Atlanta to face a Georgia Tech squad that they had never beaten. In fact, FSU had an 0-8 lifetime mark against the Rambling Wreck. The Noles were also in search of an offensive groove. Junior quarterback Charlie Ward had struggled early with an interception problem, and fans were starting to get a little restless. Florida State looked as if it would make an easy night of it early as they marched right down the field against the Tech defense. However, the offense would struggle to effectively move the ball for the remainder of the first half. Georgia Tech stayed in this contest behind the leg of Scott Sisson. On the second series of the third quarter, Sean Jones, a high school rival of Charlie Ward, found the Seminole defense napping on a 41-yard pass. After Dorsey Levens pushed it in, Tech was suddenly in control. Another Ward interception put Tech in business at FSU's 10. Sisson added a 20-yard field goal early in the fourth quarter.
You can't go out and you can't take people lightly. You can get beat on any given day. And that game seemed like everything went wrong for us. That possibly could go wrong. Charlie was struggling. The type of offense we was running, I guess it wasn't suiting him. You know, our leader of the defense went down and everybody was, you know, just trying to find a way.
Ward, close to being benched for the remainder of the contest, suddenly was resurrected. Moving to the shotgun and no huddle offense, the Charlie Ward era at Florida State truly had begun. With their inspirational leader Marvin Jones on the bench, Derek Brooks stepped up to make a name for himself.
You look over at Marvin and he said, "Man, just go out there and just play hard. You know, y'all play hard for me," and they got us motivated. And just something inside of me, I was fortunate enough to, you know, just make a few tackles and come up with a few big plays that game, and just seeing how we came together again in a time of need with our back against the wall.
It was difficult from the point of, you know, when everybody thinks you're a good player or a great player. I mean, that's the time when you really want to be with your team, is when you're behind.
But the leg of Scott Sisson proved deadly again as he answered FSU with a 35-yard field goal, and the lead was 24-14 with 5 minutes and change left. Ward again moved FSU's offense 80 yards via the medium pass and scrambles. FSU then goes with the onside kick, recovers, and begins the game-winning drive. Ward accounted for 206 of the 207 yards on the last 3 drives as FSU pulled victory from the arms of defeat.
The great finish that he had, that was seen on national television. When the World Series, I think, was playing right there in Atlanta, it just made, I mean, it made headlines all over the world, you know. And really, it's the game that made Charlie Ward. It kind of set the tone offensively of the way we were going to play for the rest of Charlie's career.
We finally found an offense that we could run, and the next few games weren't even close, you know, in the shotgun. And it's like our offense was high octane. They were ready to go when nobody stopped them. In the defense, we just rose our level of play up, and I just think that started a trend as far as the defense is getting better. And I really do think that was a turning point that really much led us on to the national championship.
14 down against them for a ball game that would have been the Atlantic Coast Conference champions and a major bowl, and you staying in the national picture. That was a mighty big comeback win.
Prior to the 1993 season, the Florida State football team has come oh so close to that elusive national championship during some of those years. Garnet and Gold faithful knew they had the best team in the land, but still could not claim the top spot. The Nebraska Cornhuskers, 11-0, ranked #1 in the coalition poll, underdogs. The Florida State Seminoles, 11-1, ranked #2 in the coalition poll, a team on a mission. A game that was supposed to be an offensive showcase for FSU turned into a defensive battle.
And we knew they wasn't a 17-point underdog, and the team was undefeated. We were blowing people out, but we knew they was going to bring a better team to the field that night because their coach hadn't won a national championship game either. And it was a defensive struggle. Defense, we just tried to keep them off the scoreboard until our offense came around.
With the game scoreless after 1, FSU's offense kicks into gear. Ward goes deep to Knox, and the Seminoles are in UN territory. The Seminoles are close to pay dirt, but a forever blitzing defense forces an early delivery. Scott Bentley comes in to nail the 3. UN receiver Reggie Ball receives a gift in the form of a tipped pass. With the first half winding down, the underdog Huskers go up by 4. The Big Red defense is unrelenting and keeps FSU out of the end zone. Bentley gets the Seminoles to within 1 just before the half. Abandoning the I formation, Ward comes out firing. Kevin Knox makes a sensational catch, and the Tribe is at the 4. William Floyd carries twice and reaches pay dirt. Finally, celebration for the Garnet and Gold. Bobby Bowden goes for 2, but a great defensive effort by Nebraska's Toby Wright ends the play. With the game still up for grabs, William Floyd rips off the most memorable run of the night, barreling and shredding tackles for 34 yards. FSU can't reach the end zone and settles for another Bentley field goal, giving FSU an 8-point advantage. Using a good mix of the pass and run, Nebraska closes to within 2. In an effort to tie the game, Osborne goes for it. The Alexanders run Frazier into the ground. A 27-yard field goal puts Tom Osborne just 1 minute and 16 seconds away from his first national championship.
It was an emotional ride, roller coaster ride, the last minute and a half. That's when it was up and down, up and down. I mean, there was a ball game that, let's see, 1, 2, there were 3 field goals in 1 minute and 23 seconds.
Could destiny be so unkind to Bobby Bowden? Charlie Ward goes to work, hitting Warwick Dunn for 9. William Floyd gets 2 on a 4th and 1, and the dream is still alive. Dunn scampers to the Huskers' 33, and a personal foul puts the ball at the 18. On 2nd down, Nebraska defender Toby Wright pulls down McCorvey, and the Tribe has new life. 1 failed attempt is enough for Bobby Bowden as he calls on the freshman from Colorado. Bentley splits the uprights.
You know, I remember about that game when Scott got ready to kick the field goal. I was like, if everybody run out there, we're gonna get a penalty. I know it. I know it. And it was like coaches was trying to held everybody back, but that excitement was so tremendous, you know, to see us actually, you know, getting ready to grasp a national championship could almost cost us and went the other way. But I just remember the kick sailing through and run out there for defense and hit the last play of the game. You know, we let the clock run out and I'm chasing the guy and I look up and see 0-0 and I tackle the guy, but come to find out they had called timeout. I was like, man, if he made this field goal, man, I feel so terrible for tackling him.
With 21 seconds remaining, Nebraska gets one last chance. Trumaine Bell grabs a rope from Tommy Frazier to the 28 as time seemingly runs out. After a premature celebration, 1 second is put back on the clock. The 45-yard field goal attempt travels wide left, and the celebration begins. The Florida State Seminoles, national champions at last. With the national championship, the maturation of the young Florida State football program is complete. The university has advanced far from the days of just competing to the days of reigning supreme in college football. The Seminoles are now poised to contend for the national championship year in and year out. The future for Seminole faithful is as bright as the burning sun. As we look to what is ahead for this program, we must never forget the games, the coaches, and the players who brought us to where we are today. These games are just a handful of obstacles that Florida State has overcome. It is a debt of gratitude that Garnet and Gold faithful owe these past warriors who have taken the name Florida State Seminoles and made it one of the nation's elite.